When a terrified woman flashes a desperate hand signal across a crowded restaurant, most people look away. But Matteo Romano, a man whose world runs on power, control, and calculated silence, sees everything. What begins as a single act of intervention spirals into a deadly game of protection and obsession, where a controlling boyfriend is just the surface of something far darker. Ava Collins wanted to escape. Instead, she stumbled into the path of Chicago's most dangerous protector. Now, with violence closing in and nowhere left to hide, she'll have to decide: trust the monster who saved her, or face the ones hunting her alone. If you're hooked, stay until the end. And drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story reaches. Hit that like button and let's dive in. The rain hammered against the windows of Marcello's, turning the glass into rippling sheets of liquid silver. Inside, the restaurant hummed with the low murmur of conversation, the clink of expensive silverware against porcelain, and the kind of laughter that only comes from people who've never had to worry about tomorrow. Chandeliers cast warm pools of light over white tablecloths, and somewhere in the back, a piano played something soft and forgettable. Ava Collins sat perfectly still, her hands folded in her lap beneath the table where Tyler couldn't see them shake. "You're not listening to me." Tyler's voice cut through her thoughts like a blade, smooth, controlled, edged with something that made her stomach tighten. He leaned forward, his smile never quite reaching his eyes, and reached across the table to touch her hand. His fingers were warm, possessive. "I said," he continued, his tone dipping into that dangerous softness she'd learned to fear, "you're not listening." "I am," Ava said quickly, forcing her lips into a smile. "I'm sorry. I was just distracted." Tyler's thumb traced a slow circle over her knuckles. To anyone watching, it would look affectionate. Ava felt the pressure of it like a warning. "You do that a lot lately. Makes me wonder what's going on in that pretty head of yours." "Nothing, everything. Please let me go." She swallowed the words and kept her face calm. She'd gotten good at that over the past year, keeping her face calm while her heart screamed. Tyler didn't like it when she looked scared. He didn't like it when she cried or argued or did anything that suggested she wasn't perfectly, blissfully happy. So she smiled. "I'm fine," she said. "Really, just tired." "You're always tired." His grip tightened, just slightly, just enough. "Maybe you need to take better care of yourself." "I've told you that before, haven't I?" "You have. And yet here we are." He released her hand and leaned back in his chair, his gaze sweeping over her like he was cataloging every flaw, every misstep. "You know I only say these things because I care about you, right?" "I know." "Good." He picked up his wine glass, swirling the deep red liquid thoughtfully. "Because sometimes I worry you don't appreciate what we have, what I do for you." Ava's throat felt tight. She nodded, not trusting herself to speak. Tyler had been charming once, funny, attentive, the kind of guy who remembered her coffee order and texted her good morning without fail. But charm had a way of curdling when you got too close, and now she could barely remember what it felt like to breathe without wondering if she was doing it wrong. He controlled everything. Where she went, who she talked to, what she wore. At first, it had seemed like love. Like he cared so much he couldn't stand the thought of losing her. But love didn't feel like a cage. Love didn't leave bruises that never quite faded. She'd tried to leave. Twice. The first time he'd cried, begged, promised he'd change. The second time he'd put his fist through the wall beside her head and told her exactly what would happen if she ever tried again. So she stopped trying. Until tonight, Ava's hand slipped into her lap, fingers trembling as she adjusted the napkin. Her eyes flicked across the restaurant, scanning faces, searching for something, anything, that might offer a way out. Most people were absorbed in their own worlds, oblivious to the girl slowly suffocating at table 12. But then her gaze landed on him. A man sitting alone near the back, his posture relaxed but his attention sharp. He was older than Tyler, mid-30s maybe, with dark hair slicked back and a tailored suit that suggested wealth without shouting it. His face was all hard angles and quiet intensity, the kind of face that didn't give anything away. And he was looking right at her. Ava's breath caught. She didn't know why she did it. Desperation, maybe. Or the tiny flickering hope that someone, anyone, might see what she was too scared to say out loud. Her hand moved slowly, deliberately, forming the signal she'd seen in a video months ago. A simple gesture, subtle enough that Tyler wouldn't notice if she kept her hands low. Palm facing in, thumb tucked, fingers closed over it. "Help me." For a moment, nothing happened. The man's expression didn't change. He simply watched her, his dark eyes unreadable. Then he nodded. It was so slight she almost missed it. A fractional dip of his chin, nothing more. But it was there. He'd seen her. He'd understood. And he wasn't looking away. "Ava." Tyler's voice snapped her attention back. He was watching her, his head tilted slightly, suspicion creeping into his features. "What are you looking at?" "Nothing," she said quickly. "Just people watching." He didn't look convinced, but he let it go. For now. "I ordered for you, by the way. The salmon. You like that, don't you?" She hated salmon. He knew that. "I love it," she said. Tyler smiled. "Good. I knew you would." Matteo Romano had learned a long time ago that most people didn't want to see the things that made them uncomfortable. They'd look away from a woman crying in a parking lot, ignore the shouting coming from the apartment next door, and convince themselves it wasn't their problem. He used to be the same way. But that was before he understood what power really meant. Before he learned that the only thing worse than being dangerous was being the kind of man who pretended he wasn't. He'd come to Marcello's for a meeting, a quiet conversation with a business associate about a shipment that had gone sideways. The kind of conversation that required discretion and a public setting to keep everyone honest. The meeting had ended 20 minutes ago, but Matteo stayed, nursing a glass of scotch and watching the room out of habit. That's when he saw her. At first, it was just a flicker of movement, a woman at a nearby table, her posture too rigid, her smile too practiced. He'd seen that look before, recognized it. Fear dressed up as compliance. The man across from her was younger, polished, the kind of guy who probably drove a leased BMW and called women babe, unironically. He was leaning forward, his hand on hers, and even from a distance, Matteo could see the tension in her shoulders. Then she did something that made him set his glass down. Her hand moved beneath the table, slow and deliberate, forming a signal he knew all too well. It was the kind of thing most people would miss, a subtle plea for help, designed to fly under the radar of whoever was watching too closely. But Matteo saw it, and for reasons he didn't entirely understand, he chose not to look away. He studied the man across from her, cataloging details. Late 20s, clean cut, confident in the way people are when they've never had to fight for anything. The kind of guy who thought control was the same thing as strength. Matteo hated men like that. He pulled out his phone, typed a quick message to his associate, and slipped it back into his pocket. Then he stood, straightened his cuffs, and crossed the room with the kind of calm that came from knowing exactly what he was capable of. He didn't approach their table. Not yet. That would draw too much attention, and attention was the last thing she needed right now. Instead, he moved toward the bar, positioning himself within earshot, and waited. Patience was a weapon. He'd learned that young. Ava could feel Tyler's mood shifting. It was always like this, calm one moment, volatile the next, and she never knew which version she was going to get until it was too late. "I don't like the way you're acting tonight," he said quietly, his voice low enough that no one else could hear. "You're being weird." "I'm not. Don't argue with me." His hand found hers again, squeezing just a little too hard. "I know you better than you know yourself, Ava, and I know when something's off." Her heart pounded. She could feel the edges of panic creeping in, the room narrowing around her until all she could see was Tyler's face and the promise of what would happen if she didn't give him the right answer. "I'm just tired," she said again, hating how small her voice sounded. "That's all. I promise." He studied her for a long moment, his jaw tight. Then he released her hand and leaned back. "Fine. We'll finish dinner and go home. But we're going to talk about this later." Later. That word made her stomach drop. She nodded, swallowing against the lump in her throat. The waiter appeared then, setting plates in front of them with a practiced smile. Ava stared down at the salmon, her appetite non-existent. "Eat," Tyler said. She picked up her fork, and then, like a small miracle, the power went out. The restaurant plunged into darkness for a split second before the emergency lights kicked in, bathing everything in a dim, yellowish glow. Conversations halted. Someone laughed nervously. The piano stopped mid-note. "What the hell?" Tyler muttered, twisting in his seat to look toward the back of the restaurant. Ava's pulse spiked. She didn't know what was happening, but she felt it. Something shifting in the air, a change she couldn't name. And then she saw him again. The man from before. He was standing near the bar now, his posture still relaxed, but his eyes were locked on Tyler. One of the waitstaff hurried over, apologizing profusely. "So sorry, sir. There's a small electrical issue. We're working on it now. In the meantime, can I offer you complimentary drinks while we sort this out?" Tyler waved him off, irritated. "Just fix it." The waiter nodded and moved on, but the interruption had already done its job. Tyler was distracted, scanning the room, his control slipping just slightly. Ava didn't waste the moment. She stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "I need to use the restroom." Tyler's gaze snapped back to her. "Now? I'll be quick." She didn't wait for permission. She turned and walked toward the back of the restaurant, her legs shaking but steady enough to carry her. She didn't look at the man by the bar, but she felt him watching. Oh, Matteo moved the moment she did. He didn't follow her directly. That would be too obvious. Instead, he intercepted one of the waitstaff, a young guy who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, and handed him a folded bill. "The woman who just walked past," Matteo said quietly. "Make sure she has a few minutes alone. If the guy at table 12 tries to follow her, delay him. Spill something, drop a tray, I don't care. Just buy her time." The waiter's eyes widened slightly, but he took the money without question. "Yes, sir." Matteo nodded and stepped back, watching as the waiter moved toward Tyler's table. A moment later, the sound of breaking glass echoed through the restaurant, a perfectly timed accident that sent Tyler's wine spilling across the tablecloth. Tyler shot to his feet, cursing, and the waiter stumbled over himself, apologizing, dabbing at the mess with a napkin. Matteo allowed himself a faint smile. Then he slipped through the hallway toward the restrooms. Ava stood in front of the bathroom mirror, gripping the edge of the sink so hard her knuckles went white. Her reflection stared back at her, pale, wide-eyed, terrified. She didn't know what she was doing. The signal had been a stupid, reckless impulse, and now she was standing here like an idiot, waiting for... what? A stranger to save her? God, what is wrong with you? But before she could spiral any further, the door opened. She spun around, expecting Tyler. It wasn't Tyler. The man from the bar stepped inside, his presence filling the small space with a quiet, undeniable authority. He didn't say anything at first, just looked at her, his dark eyes steady and calm. "You signaled for help," he said finally, his voice low and even. "I'm here." Ava's breath hitched. She didn't know whether to feel relieved or more terrified. "Who are you?" "Someone who saw what you needed." He took a step closer, not threatening, just present. "Are you in danger?" The question was so direct it caught her off guard. Most people danced around things like that, softened the blow. But this man didn't waste words. "Yes," she whispered. He nodded, like he'd already known the answer. "The man you're with. Boyfriend?" She nodded. "Does he hurt you?" Her throat tightened. She wanted to lie, to say it wasn't that bad, that she could handle it. But the words wouldn't come. "Yes," she said again, and saying it out loud felt like breaking something open. The man's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Something cold and sharp. "Not anymore." What does that mean?" "It means," he said calmly, "that you're going to walk out of here, and I'm going to make sure he doesn't follow you. Do you have somewhere safe to go?" Ava blinked, her mind racing. I don't know. My apartment, but he has a key." "Then not there." He pulled out his phone, typed something quickly, and held it up to show her an address. "Go here. It's a hotel. Ask for the manager, tell him Matteo sent you. He'll get you a room. No questions." I don't have money for... It's handled." He pocketed the phone. "Can you leave without going back to the table?" She hesitated. "My coat, my purse. Leave them." "But, Ava..." Her name on his lips stopped her cold. She didn't remember telling him her name. He must have overheard Tyler say it. "If you go back to that table, he's going to see it in your face. And then this gets harder. So leave the coat, leave the purse, walk out the back exit, get in a cab, and go to that hotel. Can you do that? She stared at him, this stranger who had somehow seen her cry for help, and decided to answer. She didn't know him, didn't know why he cared, but she believed him. Yes, she said. Good. He stepped aside, gesturing toward the door. Go now. I'll handle the rest. Ava moved past him on shaking legs, pausing at the threshold. Why are you doing this? Matteo looked at her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Because someone should. And that was all the answer she was going to get. She slipped out of the bathroom, her heart hammering as she made her way toward the back exit. She didn't look at Tyler's table, didn't stop to think about what would happen when he realized she was gone. She just walked, and for the first time in a year, she kept walking. Matteo waited until she was out of sight before returning to the dining room. The lights had come back on, and Tyler was back in his seat, scowling at the waiter who was still fussing over the spilled wine. Matteo approached the table slowly, hands in his pockets, his expression neutral. "Excuse me," he said. Tyler looked up, irritation flashing across his face. "What?" "Your girlfriend," Matteo said calmly. "She left." Tyler's expression shifted. Confusion first, then anger. "What the hell are you talking about?" "She walked out the back exit about 2 minutes ago." Matteo's tone was conversational, almost friendly. "Thought you should know." Tyler shot to his feet, his chair scraping loudly. "What? Why didn't you—" He stopped, his eyes narrowing as he took in Matteo's calm demeanor. "Who the hell are you?" "Nobody," Matteo said. "Just a guy who noticed your date didn't want to be here." Tyler's jaw clenched. "That's none of your goddamn business." "You're right," Matteo agreed. "It isn't. But she made it my business when she asked for help." The color drained from Tyler's face, replaced by a dangerous flush. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Don't I?" Matteo stepped closer, his voice dropping. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to sit back down, finish your meal, and leave. You're not going to follow her. You're not going to call her. You're not going to show up at her apartment or her work or anywhere else she might be. You're going to let her go." Tyler laughed, but there was no humor in it. "And if I don't?" Matteo's expression didn't change, but the air around him seemed to sharpen. "Then we'll have a different conversation, one you won't enjoy." For a moment, Tyler looked like he might push back, might throw a punch or make a scene, but something in Matteo's eyes, something cold and absolute, made him hesitate. "You have no idea who you're messing with," Tyler said, his voice shaking with barely controlled rage. "Maybe not," Matteo said, "but I know exactly who you are. And trust me, you don't want to find out who I am." He let the words hang in the air for a moment, then turned and walked away, leaving Tyler standing there, fists clenched, powerless. Outside, the rain had eased to a steady drizzle. Matteo pulled out his phone and sent a quick message to his contact at the hotel, confirming Ava's arrival. Then he made another call. "Yeah, it's me," he said when the line connected. "I need you to run a background check. Name's Tyler." He paused, realizing he didn't have a last name. "Never mind, I'll get you more details later. For now, just keep an eye on Marcello's. Guy in his late 20s, blonde hair, thinks he's untouchable. If he makes a move, I want to know about it." "Understood," the voice on the other end said. "Anything else?" Matteo glanced back at the restaurant, his jaw tight. "Yeah, find out everything you can about him. Who he works for, who he knows, what kind of trouble he's into. I have a feeling this isn't over." He ended the call and slipped the phone back into his pocket. He'd done what he could for now. The rest was up to Ava, but something told him this was just the beginning. Ava didn't remember the cab ride. One moment she was standing on the rain-slicked sidewalk, shivering without her coat, and the next she was in the back seat, giving the driver an address she'd only seen once on a stranger's phone. The hotel was smaller than she expected, boutique tucked away on a quiet street, the kind of place that didn't advertise, didn't need to. She walked inside, her legs still shaking, and approached the front desk. The manager, a middle-aged man with kind eyes, looked up and smiled. "Can I help you?" "Matteo sent me," she said, the words feeling surreal. The manager's expression shifted, recognition, understanding. He nodded and reached for a key. "Of course, room 412. Take the elevator to the 4th floor. You'll be safe here. Thank you, she whispered. He handed her the key. If you need anything at all, call the front desk. We'll take care of it. Ava nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. The room was simple but clean. A bed, a small desk, a bathroom with white tiles and soft lighting. She locked the door behind her, engaged the deadbolt, and sank onto the edge of the bed. And then, finally, she let herself cry. Not the silent, controlled tears she'd learned to hide from Tyler, but real, shuddering sobs that shook her entire body and left her gasping for air. She cried for the year she'd lost, for the girl she used to be. For every time she'd convinced herself it wasn't that bad, that she could handle it, that leaving would be worse than staying. She cried until there was nothing left. And when the tears finally stopped, she lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling, and let herself feel something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. She didn't know who Matteo Romano was, didn't know why he'd helped her, but for the first time in a year, she wasn't alone, and that was enough. Matteo sat in his car outside the restaurant watching the entrance. Tyler hadn't left yet, probably still inside, trying to figure out what the hell had just happened. Good. Let him stew. Matteo's phone buzzed. A message from his contact. Tyler Harrington. Works in finance. Clean record, but flagged twice for harassment complaints that were dropped. Lives in River North. No known affiliations. Seems like a small-time control freak. Matteo frowned. Small-time didn't sit right. There was something off about the whole situation. Something he couldn't quite put his finger on. He made a mental note to dig deeper. Then he started the car and pulled away from the curb, the rain drumming steadily against the windshield. He'd done his good deed for the night, but something told him this wasn't the last time he'd see Ava Collins. And he was rarely wrong about these things. Ava woke to unfamiliar silence. No alarm. No traffic noise filtering through thin apartment walls. No sound of Tyler moving around in the next room. His presence a constant weight even when he wasn't watching her. Just quiet. She lay still for a moment, disoriented, until the events of the previous night came rushing back. The restaurant, the signal, the stranger with dark eyes who'd told her to leave everything behind and just go. She sat up slowly, her body aching from tension she'd been holding for so long she'd forgotten what it felt like to let go. Sunlight filtered through the hotel curtains, casting soft shadows across the unfamiliar room. Her phone sat on the nightstand where she'd left it, the screen dark. She'd turned it off last night, unable to face the barrage of messages she knew would be waiting. Tyler would have called, texted, probably shown up at her apartment by now. The thought made her stomach clench. She picked up the phone, her thumb hovering over the power button. Then she set it back down. Not yet. She wasn't ready. Instead, she got up and moved to the window, pulling the curtain aside just enough to look down at the street below. Morning traffic moved in steady streams. People walked past with coffee cups and briefcases, their lives normal and uncomplicated. Ava couldn't remember the last time her life had felt normal. A soft knock at the door made her freeze. "Miss Collins?" A woman's voice, gentle and professional. "I have breakfast for you. Compliments of the house." Ava approached the door cautiously, checking the peephole. A young woman in hotel uniform stood in the hallway, holding a tray. She opened the door a crack, the chain still engaged. The woman smiled warmly. "Mr. Romano asked us to make sure you were taken care of. I have coffee, fruit, and pastries. May I bring it in?" Ava hesitated, then unlatched the chain. The woman entered, set the tray on the small desk, and turned to leave. "Wait," Ava said. "Mr. Romano, do you know him?" The woman's expression remained carefully neutral. "He's a valued guest. That's all I can say. But he left instructions that you were to have anything you needed. If there's anything else..." "No, thank you. This is more than enough." The woman nodded and left, closing the door softly behind her. Ava stared at the tray. Real coffee in a ceramic cup. Fresh strawberries. Croissants that were still warm. It was such a small thing, but it made her throat tight. When was the last time someone had done something kind for her without expecting anything in return? She couldn't remember. She ate slowly, savoring each bite, trying not to think about what came next. Eventually, she'd have to turn on her phone, have to face reality, have to figure out what the hell she was going to do with her life now that she'd finally run. But for now, just for a little while longer, she let herself sit in this quiet room and pretend she was safe. The illusion lasted exactly 45 minutes. That's when someone knocked on the door again, harder this time, more insistent. Ava's heart jumped into her throat. She moved to the peephole, her hands shaking. It wasn't Tyler. It was Matteo Romano. He stood in the hallway with the same calm, unreadable expression he'd worn last night, dressed in dark slacks and a crisp white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his forearms. He looked like he'd walked out of a magazine spread, polished, controlled, dangerous in a way that had nothing to do with violence and everything to do with presence. Ava unlocked the door, her pulse racing. "Good morning," Matteo said. "May I come in?" She stepped aside and he entered, his gaze sweeping the room in one quick, assessing glance before settling back on her. "Did you sleep?" he asked. "Some. She wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly aware that she was still wearing yesterday's clothes, wrinkled and slept in. "I don't know how to thank you. For last night. For this." She gestured at the room. "I don't even know why you helped me." "Because you asked," he said simply. "And because men like him only stop when someone makes them." "You don't know anything about him." "I know enough." Matteo pulled out his phone, tapped the screen, and turned it toward her. "Tyler Harrington, 28, works at Whitmore Financial as a junior analyst, lives in River North. 2 prior harassment complaints filed against him, one by an ex-girlfriend, one by a coworker. Both were dropped after he paid settlements." Ava's breath caught. "How did you—" "I make it my business to know who I'm dealing with." He pocketed the phone. "The question is, what do you want to do about it?" "I don't understand." "You left last night. That was brave. But leaving isn't the same as being free. Tyler knows where you live, where you work. He has your phone number, your email, probably access to your bank accounts if you've been together long enough. Men like him don't let go easily." The words hit her like ice water. She'd been so focused on getting away that she hadn't thought about what came after. Tyler wouldn't just accept this. He'd find her, and when he did— "I can help you," Matteo said quietly, "but I need to know if you're serious about this, about staying gone." "I am." The words came out stronger than she expected. "I can't go back. I won't." He studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Good. Then here's what's going to happen. You're going to stay here for a few more days while I handle some things. In the meantime, you need to make a plan. Find a new place to live, preferably somewhere he doesn't know about. Change your phone number. Cut off any financial ties. Can you do that?" Ava's mind raced. A new apartment meant first month's rent, deposits, furniture. Her savings were meager. Tyler had always insisted on managing their finances, giving her just enough for groceries and gas. "I don't have much money." "I'll cover it." "What? No, I can't ask you to—" "You're not asking. I'm offering." His tone left no room for argument. "Consider it a loan if it makes you feel better. You can pay me back when you're on your feet." She wanted to argue, to tell him she couldn't accept charity from a stranger, but pride was a luxury she couldn't afford right now. "Why are you doing this?" she asked again. "You don't know me." Matteo's expression flickered, something dark and distant passing through his eyes before it was gone. "Let's just say I know what it's like to feel trapped, and I have the resources to help, so I am." Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, his jaw tightening. "I have to go," he said, "but I'll have someone check in on you later. Don't leave the hotel. Don't turn on your phone. And don't contact anyone from your old life. Not yet." "For how long?" "A few days, maybe less." He moved toward the door, then paused. "Ava, if Tyler shows up here, call the front desk immediately. They know to contact me." "Do you think he'll find me?" Matteo's expression was unreadable. "I think he'll try, but he won't succeed." And then he was gone, leaving Ava alone with her thoughts and 1,000 questions she didn't have answers to. Matteo made it to his car before his phone rang again. He answered without checking the caller ID. "Talk to me. We have a problem." The voice on the other end belonged to Vincent Callahan, Matteo's oldest friend and closest ally. "Tyler Harrington filed a missing persons report this morning. Claims his girlfriend disappeared last night under suspicious circumstances." Matteo's grip on the steering wheel tightened. "He's covering his tracks." Smart move on his part. Makes him look like the concerned boyfriend instead of the abusive asshole. Cops are taking it seriously. They won't find anything. She left on her own. I know that. You know that. But if they start digging, they're going to find out she was at Marcello's last night. Security footage, credit card receipts, and then they're going to want to know who else was there. Matteo exhaled slowly. Let them look. I didn't break any laws. Maybe not. But you're on their radar now, and you know how that goes. He did. Matteo Romano was a name that carried weight in certain circles. Enough weight that the police paid attention when it surfaced. He'd spent years building a reputation, and with that reputation came scrutiny. I'll handle it, Matteo said. In the meantime, keep eyes on Harrington. I want to know everywhere he goes, everyone he talks to. Already on it. But, Matteo, be careful with this one. You're walking a fine line. I'm always walking a fine line. He ended the call and sat in the parking garage staring at nothing. Vincent was right. Getting involved with Ava had complicated things. But walking away now wasn't an option. He'd seen the look in her eyes last night, the same desperate, trapped look he'd seen in his sister's eyes years ago, right before everything fell apart. He hadn't been able to save Sophia, but maybe he could save Ava. 2 days passed in a strange, suspended reality. Ava stayed in the hotel room, venturing out only to walk the hallways when the walls started closing in. True to his word, Matteo sent people to check on her. A different hotel staff member each time, always polite, always asking if she needed anything. She didn't hear from Matteo himself. On the third morning, she finally turned on her phone. The screen lit up with notifications. 63 missed calls, over 100 text messages. Most were from Tyler, progressing from confused to angry to desperate. Where are you? Ava, this isn't funny. Call me. I'm worried about you. Please just let me know you're okay. You're making a huge mistake. I filed a police report. They're looking for you. You can't just disappear. We need to talk about this. I know you're scared, but I can change. I promise. If you don't come back, I'll find you. The last message had come in an hour ago. Ava's hands shook as she scrolled through them. Even now, even knowing what he was, part of her felt guilty. Tyler's voice echoed in her head. All the times he'd told her she was overreacting, that she didn't understand how much he loved her, that leaving would be the worst mistake of her life. But then she remembered the fear, the bruises, the feeling of suffocating slowly. She deleted every message without responding. There were other notifications too, missed calls from her best friend Mia, voicemails from her mother. Those hurt worse. But Matteo had been clear, don't contact anyone, not yet. She was about to turn the phone off again when it rang in her hand. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her press accept. Ava Collins? A woman's voice, professional and clipped. Yes? This is Detective Sarah Mills with the Chicago Police Department. I'm calling regarding a missing persons report filed by Tyler Harrington. He's listed you as his girlfriend and says he hasn't heard from you in 3 days. Can you confirm you're safe? Ava's heart hammered. Yes, I'm safe. Can you tell me where you are? I'd rather not. A pause. Ms. Collins, Mr. Harrington is very concerned. He said you left a restaurant without your belongings and haven't been home since. Is there something you'd like to tell me? The careful phrasing wasn't lost on Ava. The detective was giving her an opening. I left because I wanted to, Ava said carefully. I'm an adult. I don't have to tell him where I am. That's true, but if you're in danger, I'm not. Not anymore. Another pause, longer this time. Ms. Collins, if you're being coerced or threatened, I'm not. I just needed to get away. That's all. All right. The detective's tone shifted slightly, softer now. If you change your mind or if you need help, here's my direct number. She rattled off the digits. Ava didn't write them down. Thank you, she said. But I'm fine. She hung up before the detective could ask anything else. Her hands were still shaking when someone knocked on the door. She checked the peephole, expecting another hotel employee. It was Matteo. She opened the door, and he stepped inside, his expression grim. The police called you, he said. It wasn't a question. How did you... Because I just got off the phone with a very irritated detective who wanted to know why a person of interest was staying in a hotel I own. Ava's stomach dropped. You own this hotel? One of several investments. He waved it off like it didn't matter. What did you tell her? That I'm safe, that I left on my own. That's it. Good. He moved to the window, looking out at the street below. Tyler's escalating. Filing the police report was just the beginning. He's been calling your workplace, your friends, anyone who might know where you are. How do you know that? Because I'm watching him. Mateo turned to face her. And what I'm seeing concerns me. What do you mean? Tyler Harrington isn't just some controlling boyfriend. He's connected. Ava frowned. Connected to what? To people who don't like questions, people who have resources. Mateo pulled out his phone, brought up a photo, and showed it to her. This was taken yesterday. Tyler having lunch with a man named Marcus Delacroix. Recognize him? Ava studied the photo. Two men sitting at an outdoor cafe, leaning close in conversation. She didn't recognize the second man, older, silver-haired, expensively dressed. No, who is he? He's a fixer, the kind of person you call when you have problems that need to disappear, which means Tyler isn't just looking for you, he's planning something. Fear coiled in Ava's chest. What kind of something? I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out. He pocketed the phone. In the meantime, we're moving you. Moving me where? Somewhere safer. This hotel is too exposed. Tyler knows I own it, or he will soon enough. I have a property outside the city, quiet, secure. You'll stay there until we figure out what Tyler's planning. I can't keep letting you do this. You don't have a choice. His tone was firm but not unkind. Ava, you walked away from a dangerous man. That was brave. But bravery doesn't stop people like Tyler. Strategy does. Resources do. And right now I have both, so let me use them. She wanted to argue, wanted to insist she could handle this herself. But the truth was, she couldn't. Not against someone with Tyler's determination and connections. Okay, she said quietly. But I want to understand what's happening. No more secrets. Mateo's expression softened slightly. Fair enough. Pack whatever you have. We leave in 20 minutes. The property turned out to be a sprawling estate tucked into wooded hills an hour outside Chicago. The main house was modern glass and stone, surrounded by dense trees that provided natural cover. Security cameras were visible at every corner, subtle but unmistakable. Ava stood in the driveway, staring up at the house, feeling completely out of her depth. This is where you live? She asked. Sometimes. Mateo led her inside, where the interior was just as impressive. High ceilings, minimalist furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over the forest. I have a few places. This one's the most private. A woman appeared from one of the hallways, 50s, gray hair pulled into a neat bun, kind eyes. Mr. Romano, I prepared the guest suite like you asked. Thank you, Helen. Mateo turned to Ava. This is Helen Marsh. She manages the property. If you need anything while I'm gone, ask her. Gone? Ava's pulse spiked. You're leaving? I have business to take care of. But you'll be safe here. Helen will show you around. Mateo, he stopped, turning back to her. What kind of business? She asked. His expression darkened. The kind that keeps you safe. Don't worry about it. And before she could press further, he was gone, leaving her standing in the middle of a stranger's house, wondering what the hell she'd gotten herself into. Helen showed her to the guest suite, a spacious room with its own bathroom and a balcony overlooking the trees. It was beautiful, comfortable, and it felt like a cage. Mr. Romano is very particular about security, Helen said gently, as if sensing Ava's unease. But he's a good man. You're safe here. Do you know why I'm here? Ava asked. Helen's expression was carefully neutral. I know enough. And I know that if Mateo brought you here, it's because you need protection. That's all that matters. After Helen left, Ava sat on the edge of the bed, trying to process everything. 3 days ago, she'd been trapped in a nightmare with no way out. Now she was in a mansion in the woods, protected by a man she barely knew, hiding from a boyfriend who apparently had connections to people who made problems disappear. Her life had become a thriller novel, and she had no idea how it was going to end. She spent the rest of the day exploring the house, restless and anxious. Helen was a steady, comforting presence, but she didn't offer much information about Mateo or why he'd decided to help. By evening, Ava was pacing the guest suite, her mind spinning. The sound of a car pulling up the driveway made her move to the window. Mateo stepped out, followed by another man, tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of presence that screamed security. She watched as they talked briefly before heading inside. A few minutes later, someone knocked on her door. "Come in," she called. Mateo entered, looking tired but focused. "We need to talk." Ava's stomach tightened. "What happened?" "I had a conversation with Marcus Delacroix." "The man Tyler met with?" "Yes." "Turns out Tyler hired him to find you. And when I say hired, I mean he's offering a substantial amount of money to anyone who can locate you and bring you back." The room tilted. "Bring me back?" Delacroix's exact words were, "Retrieve the asset." Tyler's not treating this like a breakup, Ava. He's treating it like theft. She sat down hard on the bed, her legs suddenly unsteady. "What does that mean?" "It means we're not dealing with a jilted boyfriend anymore. We're dealing with someone who thinks he owns you, and people who think like that don't stop until they get what they want." "So what do we do?" Mateo's jaw tightened. "We make sure he doesn't get what he wants. I'm putting more security on the property. Vincent, the man who came in with me, will be staying in the guest house. No one gets in or out without my knowing about it." "This is insane." Ava pressed her hands to her face. "How did my life turn into this?" Mateo crouched in front of her, his dark eyes steady. "Because you had the courage to ask for help, and because Tyler underestimated what happens when someone says no to him. But you're not alone in this anymore. Do you understand?" She looked at him, this stranger who'd inserted himself into her nightmare and refused to walk away. "Why do you care?" His expression shifted, something raw and painful flickering across his features before he locked it down. "Because I didn't care soon enough once before, and someone I loved paid the price." Before she could ask what he meant, he stood and moved toward the door. "Get some rest. Tomorrow, we start planning how to end this." He left her alone with more questions than answers. But as she lay in the unfamiliar bed, listening to the wind move through the trees outside, she realized something. For the first time since she'd met Tyler, she wasn't afraid to fall asleep, because Matteo Romano was standing between her and the darkness. And somehow, she knew he wouldn't let it reach her. Morning came with the smell of coffee drifting through the house and the low murmur of voices downstairs. Ava had slept better than she had in months, which felt wrong somehow, like she shouldn't be resting while her entire life was falling apart. But exhaustion had won over guilt, and for once, she'd slept through the night without jerking awake at phantom sounds. She found Mateo and Vincent in the kitchen, papers spread across the marble island, both men leaning over what looked like surveillance photos. They looked up when she entered, and Mateo straightened, his expression shifting from intense focus to something softer. "Coffee?" he offered, already reaching for a cup. "Please." She accepted it gratefully, wrapping her hands around the warm ceramic. "What's all this?" Vincent gathered up the photos before she could get a closer look, but not before she caught a glimpse of Tyler's face in one of them. "Just business," he said smoothly. He was older than Mateo, maybe early 40s, with salt and pepper hair and the kind of watchful eyes that missed nothing. "I'm Vincent Callahan, by the way. We weren't properly introduced last night." "Ava Collins." She shook his offered hand. "I know." His smile was brief but genuine. "Mateo's told me about your situation. You're in good hands." "That's what everyone keeps saying." She looked between them. "But nobody's telling me what's actually happening." Mateo exchanged a glance with Vincent, then gestured to one of the bar stools. "Sit. We'll bring you up to speed." She sat, and Mateo slid a tablet across the counter toward her. On the screen was a dossier, Tyler's face at the top, followed by information she'd never known about the man she'd spent a year with. "Tyler Harrington," Mateo began, his tone clinical. "On the surface, he's exactly what he appears to be. Junior analyst at a mid-tier financial firm, decent salary, clean record except for those harassment complaints. But that's where it gets interesting." He tapped the screen, bringing up bank statements. "His spending doesn't match his income. He's pulling in maybe $80,000 a year, but he's spending like he makes 3 times that. Luxury car lease, high-end apartment, expensive restaurants, the math doesn't work." Ava's stomach tightened. "So where's the money coming from?" "His father." Vincent pulled up another file. "Richard Harrington, real estate developer with ties to some questionable people. Not quite organized crime, but close enough that the lines blur. He's been funneling money to Tyler for years, keeping him afloat. Why does that matter? Ava asked. Because it means Tyler has access to resources beyond what we initially thought, Mateo said. And it means his obsession with finding you isn't just about control. It's about image. His father's world doesn't tolerate weakness, and letting you walk away makes Tyler look weak. The coffee turned bitter in her mouth. So this is about his ego. Partly, but there's more. Mateo brought up another photo, Tyler and Marcus Delacroix again, this time joined by a third man. This was taken 2 days ago. The man on the right is Leonard Chen, private investigator, specializes in finding people who don't want to be found. Tyler's not just throwing money at the problem. He's assembling a team. Ava's hands started to shake. She set the coffee down before she spilled it. What do they know? Not much yet. Chen's good, but we're better. We've been feeding him false information, credit card charges in Minnesota, a hotel reservation in Milwaukee, buying you time while we figure out the next move. Which is what, exactly? She heard the edge in her own voice, the fear she was trying to keep locked down. I can't hide here forever. No, Mateo agreed. You can't, which is why we're going to draw Tyler out. Vincent leaned against the counter, arms crossed. There's a charity auction next week at the Sinclair Hotel. Big event, lots of wealthy donors, security everywhere. Tyler's father always attends, which means Tyler will be there too. It's the perfect opportunity. Opportunity for what? To make him think you'll be there, Mateo said. We'll leak information that you're planning to attend. Make it look like you're trying to move on. Establish yourself publicly. Tyler won't be able to resist. He'll come looking for you. Ava's pulse spiked. You want to use me as bait? No. Mateo's voice was firm. I want to use the idea of you as bait. You won't actually be there. We'll have someone who looks like you from a distance, just enough to get Tyler to make a move in a controlled environment where we can document everything. His harassment, his attempts to approach you, all of it on camera with witnesses. It gives you leverage. Leverage for what? A restraining order that actually sticks. Evidence if you ever need to press charges. Proof that you're not the one causing problems. He is. Mateo's expression was intense, focused. Right now it's your word against his. We need to change that. It made sense, cold, strategic sense. But the thought of being anywhere near Tyler, even by proxy, made her skin crawl. What if something goes wrong? She asked quietly. It won't. There was absolute certainty in Mateo's voice. Vincent and I will be there. We'll have security in place. And if Tyler even looks like he's going to cause a scene, we shut it down. Vincent nodded. We've done this kind of thing before. Trust me, we know what we're doing. Ava looked between them, these two men who'd inserted themselves into her nightmare like guardian angels with questionable methods. And what do I do while all this is happening? You stay here, Mateo said. Safe. Out of sight. And you let us handle Tyler. She wanted to argue, to insist she should be part of whatever plan they were concocting. But the truth was, she was terrified. The thought of facing Tyler again, even in a controlled environment, made her want to crawl out of her own skin. Okay, she said finally, but I want updates. I want to know what's happening as it happens. Done. Mateo collected the tablet, his expression softening slightly. I know this is hard, but it's going to work. You're going to get your life back. She wished she could believe him. The next few days passed in a strange, suspended rhythm. Ava spent her time exploring the property, reading books from Mateo's extensive library, and trying not to think about what was coming. Helen was a constant, gentle presence, bringing meals and making quiet conversation that never veered into territory Ava wasn't ready to discuss. Mateo came and went at odd hours, always with Vincent or other men she didn't recognize. She caught glimpses of conversations, heard fragments of plans being made. It was clear that whatever Mateo did for a living, it wasn't just real estate and hotel ownership. On the third evening, she found him alone in his study, staring at a computer screen with an intensity that made her hesitate in the doorway. Can I come in? She asked. He looked up, and something in his expression shifted, the hardness fading into something more human. Of course. She entered, taking in the room. Dark wood, leather chairs, walls lined with books, and what looked like architectural drawings. It was elegant and masculine and somehow lonely. "Can't sleep?" Mateo asked. "Too much in my head." She moved to the window, looking out at the darkened forest. "I keep thinking about what you said the other night. About someone you loved." She felt him tense behind her, the silence stretching. "You don't have to tell me," she said quickly. I want to understand why you're doing this. Really doing this." For a long moment she thought he wouldn't answer. Then she heard him stand, move closer. "I had a younger sister," he said quietly. "Sophia. She was bright, funny, too trusting for the world we grew up in." Ava turned to face him. In the dim light, Mateo's expression was raw in a way she'd never seen before. When she was 22, she met someone. Charming guy, successful, treated her like she was the center of the universe. By the time we realized what he really was, it was too late. He'd isolated her from everyone who cared about her, made her dependent on him, and when she tried to leave, his jaw tightened and Ava saw his hands curl into fists. He killed her, made it look like an accident, and I couldn't prove otherwise. The words hung in the air, heavy and brutal. "Mateo," Ava whispered. "I'm so sorry. I was too late to save her." His eyes met hers, dark and haunted. "But I wasn't going to be too late to save you." Something shifted in Ava's chest. Understanding, connection, a shared recognition of trauma that bound strangers together. She reached out without thinking, placing her hand on his arm. "Thank you," she said softly, "for seeing me, for not looking away." He covered her hand with his, and for a moment they just stood there, two people carrying wounds they'd never asked for. Then Mateo's phone buzzed, shattering the moment. He glanced at the screen and his expression hardened back into business. "Vincent's here. We need to go over final details for the auction." He looked at her. "Will you be all right?" "I'll be fine." She managed a small smile. "Go do whatever mysterious, vaguely concerning thing you do." That earned her the ghost of a smile before he left, and Ava was alone again with her thoughts. The night of the auction arrived faster than Ava expected. She spent the day pacing the guest suite, checking her phone obsessively for updates from Mateo. He'd promised to keep her informed, and true to his word, messages came through at regular intervals. "In position. Everything's on schedule. Tyler just arrived with his father. He looks agitated. The decoy's in place." Tyler's noticed her. Each message made Ava's heart race faster. She'd seen the woman Mateo had hired, a professional actress with similar build and coloring to Ava's, wearing a wig styled like Ava's hair and a dress Ava might have chosen. From a distance, in a crowded ballroom, she'd pass. But up close, Tyler would know. Another message came through. "He's moving toward her. Vincent's ready." Ava's hand shook as she typed back. "Be careful." The response was immediate. "Always am." Then nothing. 15 minutes passed. 20. 30. Ava's anxiety climbed with each silent minute. She tried calling Mateo, straight to voicemail. Vincent, same thing. Something was wrong. She was reaching for her phone to try again when it finally rang. Vincent's name on the screen. "What happened?" she demanded. "We have a problem." Vincent's voice was tight. Tyler didn't just approach the decoy. He grabbed her. Security intervened, but in the chaos, someone else made a move. "What kind of move?" "They took Mia." The world tilted. "What? Who's Mia?" "Your friend, the one you used to meet for coffee on Thursdays. She was at the auction. Apparently her company had a table. Tyler must have known she'd be there." Ava's mind raced. Mia Chen, her closest friend, the one person who'd consistently told her to leave Tyler. Sweet, loyal Mia, who worked in marketing and volunteered at animal shelters and didn't deserve to be dragged into this nightmare. "Where is she?" Ava's voice came out strangled. "We don't know yet." But Mateo's tracking down leads. Someone grabbed her during the confusion after Tyler's outburst. Professional job. In and out in under 2 minutes. Who would... But she already knew. Tyler, or someone working for him. "Stay put," Vincent said firmly. "Mateo's on his way back. We're going to find her." The line went dead. Ava stood frozen in the middle of the room, her heart hammering so hard it hurt. This was her fault. She'd asked for help, and now Mia was paying the price. She grabbed her jacket and headed for the door. Helen appeared in the hallway, concern creasing her face. "Miss Collins, where are you?" I need to go. Ava pushed past her. My friend is in danger because of me. I can't just sit here. Mr. Romano said, I don't care what Matteo said. The words came out sharper than she intended. This is my life. My friend. I'm not hiding anymore. She made it to the front door before it opened and Matteo walked in, his expression thunderous. Behind him, Vincent looked equally grim. Going somewhere? Matteo asked, his tone dangerously calm. You should have told me Mia would be there, Ava shot back. I could have warned her, could have what? Put yourself in danger too? Matteo closed the distance between them. This isn't your fault, Ava. Then whose fault is it? Because last I checked, I'm the one Tyler's obsessed with. I'm the reason Mia's missing. Tyler's the reason Mia's missing, Vincent interjected. And whoever he's working with, which, by the way, is someone we didn't see coming. Ava's anger flickered into fear. What do you mean? Matteo's jaw tightened. Tyler's not the one pulling the strings anymore. He made a deal with someone bigger, someone dangerous. Who? Rocco Bellini. The name meant nothing to Ava, but she saw the way Matteo and Vincent exchanged looks, saw the tension in their shoulders. Who is that? She demanded. A problem, Matteo said flatly. Bellini runs half the underground gambling operations in Chicago. Loan sharking, protection rackets, you name it. He's the kind of man who collects debts, and people who owe him don't say no. Why would Tyler be involved with someone like that? Because Tyler owes him money, Vincent said. A lot of it. Turns out your ex-boyfriend has a gambling problem his daddy doesn't know about. He's in deep with Bellini, and Bellini offered him a way out. Ava's stomach dropped. Me. Not quite. Matteo pulled out his phone, showed her a text message. This came through 10 minutes ago. The message was short and brutal. You want the friend back? Bring Ava Collins to the Meridian Building, Warehouse 5, midnight. Come alone or she dies. Ava's knees went weak. Matteo caught her arm, steadying her. We're not doing that, he said firmly. It's a trap. I don't care. Ava pulled away from him. That's Mia. She's there because of me. I'm not letting her die. And I'm not letting you walk into a death trap. Matteo's voice was steel. Bellini doesn't want you, Ava. He wants leverage. Against me. That stopped her. What? Bellini and I have, history, Matteo said carefully. He's been looking for a way to get at me for years. Tyler handed him the perfect opportunity. You're just the excuse. So this whole thing, helping me, protecting me, it was about your vendetta with this Bellini person? No. Matteo's expression was fierce. It started because you needed help. But Bellini's involvement changes things. He's escalating because he sees weakness. And the only way to deal with someone like him is to show strength. By sacrificing Mia? By being smart. Vincent stepped forward. We go in, but we do it our way. With backup, with a plan, with every advantage we can get. Bellini wants a confrontation? We'll give him one, just not the kind he's expecting. Ava looked between them, these two men who'd somehow become the only thing standing between her and complete disaster. What's your plan? We make them think you're coming, Matteo said. You stay here under guard. Vincent and I go to the warehouse with a team. We get Mia out, and we end this. And what if Bellini kills her the moment he realizes I'm not there? He won't. Matteo's certainty was absolute. Mia's only valuable as leverage. The moment he loses that, he has nothing. So he'll keep her alive as long as he thinks you're coming. You can't promise that. No, Matteo admitted. But I can promise that walking in there yourself will get you both killed, and I'm not letting that happen. Ava wanted to scream, to hit something, to do anything but stand here feeling helpless while her friend's life hung in the balance. But she also knew Matteo was right. She had no training, no weapons, no way to fight people like Bellini and Tyler. All she had was trust. Bring her back, Ava said quietly. Please, bring her back safe. Matteo's expression softened. I will. He turned to leave, but Ava caught his arm. Matteo, be careful. Something flickered in his eyes, surprise maybe, or something deeper. Always am, he said, echoing his earlier text. Then he was gone. Vincent at his heels, and Ava was left with Helen and two security guards she didn't know, waiting for news that might never come. The warehouse district was exactly the kind of place where people disappeared. Empty buildings with broken windows, streets lined with rusted chain-link fences, the kind of darkness that seemed to swallow light. Mateo stood in the shadows across from Warehouse 5, watching the building with the patient focus of a predator sizing up prey. Vincent was beside him, checking his weapon with practiced efficiency. Behind them, 3 more men waited, all people Mateo trusted with his life, all armed and ready. "I count 4 guards outside," Vincent murmured. "Probably more inside." "Bellini wouldn't come himself," Mateo said. "Too smart for that. He'll send his lieutenant, Carlo Rossetti." "The one who likes knives?" "That's the one," Vincent grimaced. "Great. My favorite." Mateo's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, a message from one of his tech people who'd been monitoring communications. "Just intercepted a call. They're expecting you to show at midnight with the girl. They're planning to kill you both and dump the bodies." He showed Vincent, who swore quietly. "So much for negotiating," Vincent said. "We never negotiate with men like Bellini." Mateo pocketed the phone. "We end them." They moved at 11:45, splitting up to cover multiple entry points. Mateo went in through a side door that had been conveniently left unlocked. A trap, obviously, but one he'd expected. The interior of the warehouse was a maze of shipping containers and pallets, lit by harsh fluorescent lights that cast everything in sickly yellow. Voices echoed from somewhere deeper inside, and Mateo followed the sound, his weapon drawn, every sense on high alert. He found them in the center of the warehouse, Mia tied to a chair, bloodied but conscious, surrounded by 6 men. Tyler stood off to the side, looking pale and nervous, and in front of them all, relaxed and confident, was Carlo Rossetti. "Right on time," Carlo said, his voice carrying across the space. "But I don't see the girl." "She's not coming," Mateo said, stepping into the light. Carlo's smile widened. "Then your friend here dies." "No." Mateo's voice was calm, controlled. "She doesn't, because you're going to let her go." "And why would I do that?" "Because if you don't, I'm going to kill every single person in this building, starting with you." Carlo laughed. "Big talk for a man who's outnumbered 6-1. 7-5, actually." Vincent's voice came from behind Carlo. "You really should keep better track of your exits." Carlo spun, and chaos erupted. Mateo moved before anyone could react, taking down the closest guard with 2 quick shots. Vincent did the same, and suddenly the numbers weren't so bad. Tyler scrambled backward, crashing into a shipping container, his earlier bravado evaporating. Carlo pulled a knife, of course he did, and lunged at Mateo with practiced speed. Mateo sidestepped, brought his gun around, but Carlo was faster than expected, knocking the weapon from his hand. It skittered across the concrete floor, and then it was just the 2 of them, circling each other while gunfire echoed around them. "Bellini's gonna gut you for this," Carlo hissed. "Bellini's gonna have to find me first." Mateo ducked under a knife slash, drove his fist into Carlo's ribs, felt something crack. Carlo staggered back, but he was grinning, energized by pain. "You think you're saving her? You're just making it worse. Bellini doesn't forget. He'll hunt her down, and when he finds her..." Mateo didn't let him finish. He closed the distance, disarmed Carlo with a brutal efficiency learned from years of surviving in a world that didn't forgive weakness, and drove the knife into Carlo's shoulder, pinning him to the wooden pallet behind him. Carlo screamed. "Tell Bellini," Mateo said quietly, his face inches from Carlo's, "that if he comes near her, I'll burn his entire operation to the ground, and then I'll come for him." He left Carlo there, bleeding and furious, and turned to find Vincent had cleared the remaining guards. Mia was still tied to the chair, her eyes wide with shock and fear. Mateo cut her free. "You're safe now. I'm a friend of Ava's." "Where is she?" Mia's voice was hoarse. "Is she okay?" "She's fine. Worried about you." He helped her stand, supporting her weight when her legs wobbled. "Can you walk?" "I think so." Vincent appeared at his side. "We need to move. I heard sirens." "Of course." Someone had called the cops. Mateo nodded, and they headed for the exit, Mia between them. But they didn't make it 10 feet before Tyler stepped into their path, a gun trembling in his hands. "You're not taking her," Tyler said, his voice shaking. "This is all your fault. If you hadn't interfered, Ava would still be with me. Everything would be fine." Put the gun down, Mateo said calmly. No. No, I'm done taking orders. I'm done being the one who loses. Tyler's finger tightened on the trigger. You took her from me, so I'm taking everything from you. He wasn't aiming at Mateo. He was aiming at Mia. Time slowed. Mateo saw Tyler's finger move, saw the decision crystallize in his eyes. There was no time to draw his own weapon, no time to get between them, but Vincent was faster. The shot echoed through the warehouse, and Tyler dropped like a puppet with cut strings, the gun clattering from his hand. He hit the ground hard, clutching his leg, screaming. Move, Vincent said tersely. They ran. Behind them, police sirens wailed louder, closer. They burst out of the warehouse into the cold night air, where one of Mateo's men waited with a car. They piled in, Mia in the back seat, and the driver peeled away as the first police cruiser rounded the corner. Mateo looked back once, saw the warehouse lit up like a beacon, saw officers swarming the building. Tyler would survive. Carlo would survive. But the message had been sent, and Bellini would hear it. They drove in tense silence until they were miles away, finally pulling over in an empty parking lot. Mia was shaking, tears streaming down her face, and Mateo gave her space while Vincent made calls, cleaning up the mess they'd left behind. Is it over? Mia finally asked. Mateo wanted to say yes, wanted to promise her that the nightmare was done, but he'd learned a long time ago not to make promises he couldn't keep. For now, he said, but we need to get you somewhere safe, and then we need to make sure Bellini understands that this ends here. Mia nodded, wiping at her eyes. Ava? I need to see Ava. Soon, Mateo promised. First, let's make sure you're okay. But as he said the words, his phone buzzed with a new message. Unknown number. You made a mistake tonight, Romano. The girl lives. Your friend lives. But this isn't over. Bellini doesn't forget. And neither do I. Mateo stared at the message, his jaw tight. No, it wasn't over. But it would be. One way or another, he was going to end this. The car pulled up to the estate just after 2 a.m, and Ava was already at the door before the engine cut off. She'd been waiting for hours, pacing the entryway despite Helen's gentle insistence that she try to rest, checking her phone obsessively for updates that came in agonizing intervals. When Mia stepped out of the back seat, bruised and shaking but alive, Ava's legs nearly gave out. Mia! The name came out as a sob. She rushed forward, and Mia met her halfway, and they collided in a fierce embrace that felt like the only solid thing in a world that had tilted completely off its axis. I'm so sorry, Ava whispered against Mia's hair. I'm so sorry. Don't. Mia pulled back, her face streaked with tears and dirt. This isn't your fault. None of this is your fault. But it felt like her fault. It felt like everything that had gone wrong in the past week could be traced back to the moment she'd flashed that desperate signal in a crowded restaurant, dragging innocent people into the darkness she'd been trying to escape. Mateo stood by the car, watching them with an expression Ava couldn't quite read. His shirt was torn at the shoulder and there was blood on his hands. Not his own, she hoped, but his eyes were steady, calm, like he'd just come back from a business meeting instead of a gunfight. Get her inside, he said quietly to Vincent. She needs medical attention. I'm fine, Mia protested, but her voice was weak, and she was leaning heavily on Ava. You're not fine, Mateo said, his tone leaving no room for argument. Helen, call Dr. Morrison. Tell him we need a house call. Helen disappeared into the house without question, and Vincent guided Mia inside, Ava following close behind. She looked back once at Mateo, caught his eye, and mouthed, "Thank you." He nodded once, then turned away to make a call, his voice low and urgent as he disappeared into the darkness beyond the driveway lights. The doctor arrived within 30 minutes, a silver-haired man with kind eyes and the discretion of someone who'd made house calls for Mateo before and knew better than to ask questions. He examined Mia in the guest suite, treating cuts and bruises, checking for signs of concussion while Ava hovered nearby, unable to sit still. She's going to be fine, Dr. Morrison said finally, packing up his bag. Rest, fluids, and time. The physical injuries are superficial, but trauma like this... He looked at Ava meaningfully. That takes longer to heal. She should talk to someone, a professional. I will, Mia said from the bed, her voice stronger now. I promise. But Right now, I just want to understand what the hell is happening. The doctor left, and Ava sat on the edge of the bed, taking Mia's hand. It's a long story. I've got time. Mia's attempt at a smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Apparently, I'm staying in a mansion with armed guards and a mysterious benefactor who just rescued me from a warehouse. So, yeah, I'd love the full story. Ava told her everything. Tyler's control, the fear, the hand signal, Matteo's intervention, the discovery of Tyler's gambling debts, and his connection to Rocco Bellini. The plan that had gone so catastrophically wrong. You should have told me, Mia said when she finished. About Tyler, about what he was doing to you. I was ashamed. Ava's voice cracked. And I didn't want to drag you into it. Look how well that worked out. Hey, Mia squeezed her hand. I'm alive. You're alive, and Tyler's not going to hurt you anymore. That's what matters. But Bellini is Matteo's problem now, apparently. Mia's eyes were sharp despite her exhaustion. Speaking of which, who exactly is he? Because that's not a normal person who just happened to help you out of the goodness of his heart. I don't know all the details, Ava admitted, but he's complicated. He lost his sister to someone like Tyler. I think that's why he helped me. And the armed guards? The doctor who makes house calls at 3 a.m? The fact that he just stormed a warehouse and rescued me from mobsters? Like I said, complicated. Mia was quiet for a moment, studying Ava's face. You care about him. I barely know him. That's not what I asked. Ava looked away, uncomfortable with how easily Mia saw through her. He saved my life. Maybe more than once. Of course I care about him. That's not the same thing as what I'm seeing in your face right now. Before Ava could respond, a soft knock interrupted them. Matteo stood in the doorway, freshly showered, wearing clean clothes, the blood and grime washed away. But his eyes were tired, and there was a tension in his shoulders that hadn't been there before. Sorry to interrupt, he said. Mia, how are you feeling? Like I got kidnapped by mobsters and rescued by Batman, Mia said dryly. So, Thursday. That earned a faint smile. I'm glad you're okay, and I'm sorry you got pulled into this. Ava told me why. About Bellini. Mia's expression sobered. Is it over? Really over? Matteo's jaw tightened. Not yet. But it will be. What does that mean? Ava asked, fear creeping back into her voice. He stepped into the room, closed the door behind him. It means Bellini's not going to let this go. We humiliated him tonight, took his leverage, shot his lieutenant. Men like him don't forgive that kind of disrespect. So what happens now? Now we finish it. Matteo's expression was grim. I've been tracking Bellini's operations for years, waiting for the right moment. He's careful, keeps his hands clean, operates through intermediaries. But tonight, he made a mistake. He came after someone under my protection, and that gives me justification to move against him. Move against him how? Mia asked. By taking apart his organization piece by piece until he has no choice but to come out of hiding. And when he does... Matteo didn't finish the sentence, but the implication was clear. Ava's stomach twisted. This is because of me. You're going to war with a crime boss because I asked for help. No. Matteo's voice was firm. This is because Bellini crossed a line. You're just the catalyst. This would have happened eventually. He and I, we've been circling each other for years. This just moves up the timeline. How long have you been planning this? Ava asked quietly. Since the night he killed my sister and walked away clean. The words were soft but laced with steel. Bellini's the one who got her boyfriend to isolate her, control her. He's the one who taught that bastard how to break someone down until they had nothing left. And when she tried to leave, Bellini gave the order to make sure she never could. The room fell silent. Ava felt Mia's hand tighten around hers. I'm sorry, Ava whispered. Don't be. Matteo's expression softened slightly. Sophia would have liked you. You remind me of her, actually. That same quiet strength, that refusal to stay broken. I don't feel very strong. You're here, aren't you? You got away. You survived. That takes more strength than you know. He moved toward the door. Get some rest. Both of you. Tomorrow we make plans. Matteo. Ava stood, surprising herself. What you said before about finishing this, does that mean... It means I'm going to make sure Bellini can never hurt anyone the way he hurt Sophia. the way he tried to hurt you. His eyes met hers, dark and unflinching. And I need to know if you can live with that. The question hung in the air between them, weighted with implications Ava wasn't sure she was ready to unpack. But she thought about Sophia, about Mia tied to a chair, about all the other women who might end up in Bellini's crosshairs if someone didn't stop him. Yes, she said, I can live with it. He nodded, something like respect flickering in his expression. Good. Then we understand each other. He left, and Ava sank back onto the bed, her mind racing. Ava, Mia said carefully, what exactly have you gotten yourself into? I don't know, Ava admitted, but I don't think I can walk away from it now. Do you want to? Ava thought about it, really thought about it. A week ago, all she'd wanted was to escape Tyler and rebuild some semblance of a normal life. But normal felt like a distant memory now, and the idea of walking away from Matteo, from this strange, intense connection that had formed between them, felt impossible. No, she said finally. I don't think I do. Mia was quiet for a long moment. Then I guess we're in this together. You don't have to be. You could leave, go somewhere safe, and let you face this alone. Not a chance. Mia's expression was fierce despite her injuries. You're my best friend. Where you go, I go. Even if it's into the middle of a mob war, apparently. Ava felt tears prick her eyes. You're insane. Takes one to know one. Mia managed a real smile this time. Besides, that Matteo guy seems to know what he's doing. And Vincent's kind of hot in a scary, ex-military kind of way. Despite everything, Ava laughed. You were just kidnapped. Which means I deserve to appreciate attractive men who rescue me. It's therapeutic. The laughter felt good, even if it was edged with hysteria. They talked for a while longer, their conversation drifting to safer topics. Mia's job, mutual friends, anything that felt normal and uncomplicated. Eventually, Mia's eyes started to droop, exhaustion finally winning out over adrenaline. Ava left her to sleep and wandered downstairs, too wired to rest herself. She found Matteo in his study, surrounded by papers and photographs spread across his desk, a glass of whiskey in his hand. Can't sleep either? She asked from the doorway. He looked up, and some of the tension in his expression eased. Too much to plan. Can I help? You should be resting. I've been resting for days. I want to be useful. She stepped into the room, closing the door behind her. Please, let me do something. Matteo studied her for a long moment, then gestured to the chair across from his desk. All right, but you're not going to like what you see. She sat, and he turned the photographs toward her. They showed buildings, people she didn't recognize, surveillance shots that looked like they'd been taken over months or years. These are Bellini's operations, Matteo explained. Gambling dens, loan sharking headquarters, warehouses where he stores product. He's got his fingers in everything. Drugs, weapons, human trafficking. The warehouse where we found Mia was just the tip of the iceberg. Ava's stomach turned. And you're going to shut them all down? Not all at once. That would be suicide, but systematically, methodically. I've got allies, people who owe me favors, law enforcement who want Bellini gone as much as I do. We hit him where it hurts, cut off his revenue streams, turn his people against him. And when he's weak enough, isolated enough, we take him down for good. How long will that take? Weeks, maybe months. Matteo's expression was grim. Bellini's been building this empire for 20 years. Taking it apart won't be quick or easy. And what do I do while you're doing all this? You stay safe, you stay hidden, you let me handle the dangerous parts. Ava shook her head. I can't just sit around waiting while you risk your life. Not after everything you've done for me. Ava, no. Listen. She leaned forward, her voice intense. I know I'm not trained like you. I know I don't have your resources or your experience, but I'm smart and I'm motivated and I need to be part of this. Because if I'm not, if I just hide in this beautiful house while you fight my battles, then I'm still letting someone else control my life. And I'm done with that. Matteo set down his glass, his dark eyes locked on hers. You have no idea what you're asking for. Then tell me, show me, but don't shut me out. He was silent for a long time, and Ava could see the conflict playing out behind his eyes, the desire to protect her warring with something else, something that looked almost like respect. "All right," he said finally. "But you do exactly what I tell you, when I tell you. No arguments, no improvising. Bellini's people are professionals. One mistake and you're dead. Can you live with those terms?" "Yes." "Then starting tomorrow, Vincent will begin training you. Basic self-defense, situational awareness, how to recognize threats. You're going to learn how to protect yourself. And then? And then we'll see." Matteo picked up his whiskey, drained it. "But understand something, Ava. Once you're part of this, there's no going back. You'll see things, do things that will change you. Are you sure that's what you want?" Ava thought about the girl she'd been a week ago, scared, trapped, invisible. That girl was gone, burned away by fire and fear and the strange, fierce determination that had been growing inside her since the moment she'd asked a stranger for help. "I'm sure," she said. Matteo nodded slowly. "Then tomorrow, we start." The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of activity and transformation. Vincent proved to be a patient but demanding teacher, drilling Ava on defensive techniques until her muscles ached and her reflexes became sharp. He taught her how to read a room, how to spot exits and threats, how to move through crowds without drawing attention. "The goal isn't to make you a fighter," Vincent explained during one session, demonstrating how to break a wrist hold. "It's to make you aware, so if something goes wrong, you have options." Ava absorbed it all like a sponge, driven by equal parts determination and fear. Mia joined some of the sessions, recovering quickly from her ordeal with the resilience that had made her Ava's best friend in the first place. Meanwhile, Matteo's operation against Bellini moved forward with ruthless efficiency. Buildings mysteriously caught fire in the middle of the night. Shipments disappeared en route to their destinations. People who'd been loyal to Bellini for years suddenly found themselves arrested on charges that had been building in secret for months. Ava watched it all unfold from the safety of the estate, tracking the moves on Matteo's maps like pieces on a chessboard. And slowly, she began to understand the scope of what he'd built. Not just wealth and influence, but a network of allies and information that rivaled anything Bellini had. "You're not just a businessman, are you?" she asked him one evening, finding him alone in his study. Matteo looked up from the papers he'd been reviewing. "What do you think I am?" "I think you walk in two worlds, the legitimate one, where you own hotels and invest in real estate, and the other one, where you do whatever it takes to protect the people you care about. Does that bother you?" Ava considered the question. A month ago, it would have terrified her, but she'd seen what Matteo did with his power, how he used it to shield the vulnerable, to punish the predators, to create consequences for men who thought themselves untouchable. "No," she said. "It doesn't bother me. I think maybe it should, but it doesn't." Something shifted in Matteo's expression, a warmth breaking through the usual control. "You've changed since that night at the restaurant." "I had to." She moved closer, drawn by something she couldn't quite name. "The girl I was before. She couldn't survive in this world, so I became someone else." "And who are you now?" Ava met his eyes, saw herself reflected there, stronger, sharper, no longer afraid. "I'm still figuring that out." The air between them felt charged, heavy with unspoken things. Matteo stood slowly, closing the distance until they were only inches apart. "Ava," he said quietly, "this thing between us, I know." She did know, had felt it building for days, this pull that had nothing to do with gratitude or protection, and everything to do with the way he looked at her like she was brave instead of broken. "I can't promise you normal," Matteo continued, his voice rough. "I can't promise you safe. My life is complicated, dangerous. I don't want normal." The words came out fierce, certain. "I tried normal. Normal was Tyler convincing me I was worthless. This is the first time in years I felt like I matter." Matteo's hand came up to cup her face, his thumb tracing her cheekbone with unexpected gentleness. "You matter more than you know." She kissed him before she could think better of it, and he responded immediately, his arms coming around her, pulling her close. The kiss was fire and need, and the collision of two people who'd been orbiting each other for weeks, finally giving in to gravity. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Matteo rested his forehead against hers. This complicates things, he murmured. Everything about us is already complicated. He laughed, a real laugh that transformed his face, made him look younger. Fair point. They stood there for a moment, wrapped in each other, the world outside forgotten. But reality had a way of intruding, and Matteo's phone buzzed with a message that made his expression harden. What is it? Ava asked. Bellini. Matteo's jaw tightened as he read. He's moving his base of operations, going underground. Is that bad? It means he's scared, and scared animals are the most dangerous kind. He looked at her, conflict clear in his eyes. I need to go. There's a meeting with some contacts who can help us track him. I'm coming with you. Ava, you said I could be part of this, so let me be part of it. Matteo studied her face, then nodded slowly. All right, but you stay close to me, and if I tell you to run, you run, understood? Understood. They left an hour later, Vincent driving while Matteo briefed Ava on who they were meeting, a former associate of Bellini's who'd grown tired of the violence and wanted out. The meeting was set at a small bar in a neighborhood that had seen better days, the kind of place where people minded their own business and didn't ask questions. Ava felt her pulse quicken as they entered, her training kicking in automatically. Exits marked, potential threats assessed, hands ready to move if necessary. The bar was dimly lit and sparsely populated, and the man they were meeting sat alone in a corner booth, hunched over a beer. Franco, Matteo said, sliding into the booth across from him. Ava sat beside Matteo, hyper-aware of every sound, every movement. Franco was older, weathered, with the kind of eyes that had seen too much. Romano, you've got balls showing up here. You called the meeting, because I'm done with Bellini's shit. But that doesn't mean I want to end up dead. Franco's gaze shifted to Ava. Who's she? Someone Bellini tried to hurt, Matteo said simply. She's with me. Franco grunted, took a long pull of his beer. Bellini's losing his mind. Ever since you started hitting his operations, he's been paranoid, violent, killed 2 of his own guys for looking at him wrong. Where is he? That's the thing. I don't know. He's moved locations 3 times in the past week. Only his inner circle knows where he is at any given time. Franco leaned forward. But I know where he's going to be tomorrow night. Matteo's eyes sharpened. Where? There's a shipment coming in. Big one. Weapons, drugs, enough product to keep him running for 6 months. He's personally overseeing it because he doesn't trust anyone anymore. It's happening at the old Riverside docks, Warehouse 12. Time? Midnight. He'll have 20 guys with him, maybe more. It's your best shot at getting to him. Or your best shot at setting me up, Matteo said calmly. Franco's expression darkened. You think I'd risk my neck for Bellini after what he did to my nephew? The kid was just a driver, and Bellini had him executed for being 5 minutes late. He pushed a folder across the table. Everything you need is in there. Floor plans, guard rotations, entry points. Do what you want with it. But if you're going after him, tomorrow's your chance. Matteo took the folder without opening it. If this is a trap, it's not. I'm done with that life. I just want out. Franco stood, threw some bills on the table. Good luck, Romano. You're going to need it. He left, and Ava felt the tension in her shoulders finally release. Do you trust him? Not entirely, but the information checks out with what my people have been gathering. Matteo opened the folder, scanned the contents. This could work. Or it could be exactly what Bellini wants, Vincent said from where he'd been standing guard near the door. You walk into that warehouse, you might not walk out. Then we don't walk in. Matteo's expression was calculating. We draw him out. How? Ava asked. Matteo looked at her, and she saw the answer in his eyes before he spoke. We give him what he wants. Her stomach dropped. Me? Not really you, but he doesn't know that. Matteo's voice was calm, clinical, but there was something in his eyes that suggested this plan cost him more than he was letting on. We leak information that you're going to be at the docks tomorrow night. Make it look like you're trying to leave the city, that you've broken away from my protection. Bellini won't be able to resist. He'll come himself, bring his people, and when he does, we end it, Vincent finished. Ava's heart hammered. And when he figures out it's not really me? You'll be miles away, safe, with guards I trust. We'll use another decoy, someone trained, someone who knows the risks. Mateo's hand found hers under the table, squeezed gently. I won't put you in danger. Not again. She wanted to argue, to insist she could handle it, but she also knew her limitations. She'd learned to defend herself, but she wasn't ready for a war. Okay, she said, but I want to be on comms. I want to hear everything that's happening. Mateo hesitated, then nodded. Fair enough. They left the bar and drove back to the estate in tense silence, each of them processing what was coming. Tomorrow night would end this, one way or another. Either Bellini would fall or Mateo would, and Ava refused to consider the second possibility. Back at the estate, she found Mia in the library, curled up with a book, but clearly not reading. She looked up when Ava entered, and the question was clear in her eyes. Tomorrow, Ava said simply. It happens tomorrow. Mia set the book aside. Are you scared? Terrified. Good. That means you're smart. Mia stood, crossed to where Ava stood. But you're also the bravest person I know. And Mateo, he's not going to let anything happen to you. What if something happens to him? Then we'll deal with it, together. Mia pulled her into a hug. But I don't think you need to worry. That man is scary competent, and he cares about you. I see the way he looks at you. Ava pulled back. We kissed. Finally, Mia grinned. I was wondering how long you two were going to dance around it. This is insane, right? Falling for someone in the middle of all this chaos? Maybe. Or maybe it makes perfect sense. You're both broken people who found each other in the darkness. That's not insane. That's human. Ava wanted to believe her. Wanted to think that what she felt for Mateo was real and not just trauma bonding or gratitude dressed up as something deeper. But when she thought about losing him, about tomorrow going wrong, the fear that gripped her felt too raw, too visceral to be anything but real. I should try to sleep, she said, even though she knew it was futile. Good luck with that. Mia hugged her again. I'll be right here if you need me. Ava made it to her room, changed into sleep clothes, and lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the warehouse, saw Mateo walking into a trap, saw everything going wrong. A soft knock made her sit up. Come in. Mateo entered and without a word crossed to the bed and sat on the edge. Can't sleep either? Every time I try, I see tomorrow going wrong. It won't. You can't promise that. No, he admitted, but I can promise that I've survived worse, and I'm not planning to die tomorrow. Ava reached for his hand, laced her fingers through his. What happened with your sister? Did you ever find the man who killed her? Mateo's expression went distant, dark. I found him. 2 years after Sophia died, I tracked him down. He was living in Miami, using a different name, already working on destroying some other woman's life. What did you do? I made sure he could never hurt anyone again. The words were soft but absolute, leaving no doubt about what he meant. Ava should have been horrified. Instead, she felt a fierce satisfaction. Good. Mateo looked at her, something like surprise in his eyes. You mean that? Yes. Some people don't deserve second chances. He pulled her close, and she went willingly, curling into his side, feeling safe in a way she'd never felt with Tyler, in a way she wasn't sure she'd ever felt before. Stay, she whispered, just for tonight. Mateo didn't answer with words. He simply held her tighter, and together they lay in the darkness, two people bound by violence and survival and something that felt dangerously close to love, waiting for the dawn that would bring either freedom or devastation. Ava woke to find Mateo already gone, the space beside her cold, and for a moment panic seized her chest. Then she saw the note on the pillow, his handwriting sharp and efficient. Had to start preparations early. Vincent will bring you to the safe house by noon. Trust me, we'll end this today. M. She pressed the note to her chest, trying to slow her racing heart. Today. Everything came down to today. By the time she showered and dressed, the estate was buzzing with controlled chaos. Men she didn't recognize moved through the halls carrying equipment, speaking in low voices into phones and radios. Vincent found her in the kitchen, where Helen had laid out breakfast that Ava couldn't imagine eating. Ready? Vincent asked, his expression all business. As I'll ever be. Mia appeared in the doorway, already dressed, her face set with determination. I'm coming too. Mia? Ava started. Don't. Mia's tone left no room for argument. You're my best friend. I'm not sitting this one out. Vincent looked between them, then shrugged. Fine. But you both follow my instructions to the letter. No heroics, no improvising. Clear? They nodded in unison. The safe house turned out to be a nondescript apartment in a building 40 minutes from the docks, chosen specifically for its distance from the action and its multiple exit routes. Vincent settled them in the main room where a bank of monitors showed camera feeds from various angles around the warehouse district. Mateo's team is already in position, Vincent explained, pointing to different screens. We've got eyes on every approach. When Bellini shows, we'll know. Ava stared at the screens, her stomach in knots. Somewhere in that maze of warehouses and shipping containers, Mateo was setting a trap that could either end this nightmare or cost him everything. How long until it starts? Mia asked, settling beside Ava on the couch. Vincent checked his watch. The leak went out 2 hours ago. If Bellini takes the bait, he'll mobilize fast. Could be any time in the next 4 hours. 4 hours. An eternity and an instant all at once. Ava pulled out the earpiece Vincent had given her, the one that would let her monitor the communications between Mateo's team. She fitted it in place and immediately heard the low crackle of voices conducting final checks. Perimeter secure. Sniper positions confirmed. Decoy en route, ETA 15 minutes. And then Mateo's voice, calm and controlled. Everyone remember, we want Bellini alive if possible. He has information we need, but if it comes down to him or us, you know what to do. A chorus of acknowledgments followed. Ava closed her eyes, letting the sound of his voice ground her. He was in his element, commanding and confident. This was who he was beneath the polished businessman exterior. A strategist, a protector, someone who'd learned to survive in a world that didn't forgive weakness. The waiting was agony. Ava paced the apartment while Mia tried to distract her with conversation, and Vincent monitored the feeds with the focus of a hawk. Minutes crawled by like hours. Then, at 3:47 in the afternoon, everything changed. Movement on the east perimeter. One of Mateo's men reported over the comms. Multiple vehicles approaching. Count 6. No, 7 SUVs. Ava's heart jumped into her throat. She moved to the monitors, watching as the vehicles came into view, black and sleek and moving with purpose. That's them, Vincent said quietly. Bellini's convoy. On screen, the SUVs pulled up to Warehouse 12, and men poured out, easily 20 of them, all armed, all moving with military precision. And in the center of the group, protected on all sides, was a man Ava recognized from the photos Mateo had shown her. Rocco Bellini. He was younger than she'd expected, maybe 50, with silver-streaked hair and the kind of face that might have been handsome if it wasn't twisted with cruelty. He moved like someone who'd never known fear, who'd built an empire on the backs of broken people and never lost a night's sleep over it. Mateo, you seeing this? Vincent spoke into his own comms. Copy that. Mateo's voice was steady. Let them get inside. We want them contained. Ava watched as Bellini's men swept the warehouse, securing positions, setting up a perimeter. They were professionals, careful and thorough, but Mateo had known they would be. That's why his own people were hidden in places they'd never think to look, in the rafters behind false walls, in positions that had been prepared days in advance. The decoy arrived in a separate car, a woman who matched Ava's height and build, wearing similar clothes and a wig. Even on the grainy security footage, the resemblance was uncanny. She moved toward the warehouse entrance, playing her part perfectly, nervous, looking over her shoulder, exactly how Ava would have looked if she'd really been trying to run. She's good, Mia murmured. She's an undercover cop, Vincent said. Works with Mateo sometimes when their interests align. She knows what she's doing. Bellini emerged from the warehouse, flanked by guards, and even through the camera feed, Ava could see the predatory satisfaction on his face. He'd taken the bait completely. There you are, Bellini's voice came through the comms, picked up by the wire the decoy was wearing. The girl who's caused me so much trouble. I just want to leave, the decoy said, her voice shaking convincingly. Please, I'll disappear. You'll never hear from me again. Oh, I know I won't. Bellini moved closer. Because you're not going anywhere. Did you really think Romano could protect you? That he cared about anything other than using you to get to me? He saved me from Tyler. Tyler was a mistake. Sloppy, emotional, weak. I should never have worked with him. But you're leverage. And once Romano knows I have you, he'll come running. And then I'll kill you both and feed your bodies to the lake. On the monitors, Ava saw Matteo's men shifting into position, tightening the circle. But Bellini had positioned his own people strategically too, creating overlapping fields of fire that would make a frontal assault suicide. "Matteo, it's a trap," Ava said urgently into her comms, knowing he could hear her even if he couldn't respond directly. "He's expecting you to make a move." "I know." Matteo's voice came back, calm as ever. "Which is why we're not giving him what he expects." Before Ava could ask what that meant, the sound of helicopters filled the air, not Matteo's people. Police helicopters circling overhead, spotlights cutting through the growing darkness. "Federal agents!" a voice boomed over a loudspeaker. "You are surrounded. Drop your weapons and come out with your hands up." Bellini's head snapped up, confusion and rage warring on his face. "What the hell?" On the monitors, Ava saw police vehicles blocking every exit, SWAT teams taking positions, a coordinated operation that had clearly been planned for months. "Matteo, what did you do?" Vincent asked, surprised for the first time since Ava had met him. "What I should have done years ago," Matteo's voice came through. "I gave the feds everything they needed to take Bellini down legally. Financial records, witness testimonies, evidence of every crime he's committed for the past decade. They've been building a case for months. I just gave them the perfect opportunity to execute it." Bellini was screaming at his men, ordering them to fight, to shoot their way out. But his people were already dropping weapons, hands going up as they realized how outgunned they were. Only the most loyal, or most stupid, kept fighting. Gunfire erupted, sharp cracks that made Ava flinch even 40 minutes away. She watched the monitors helplessly as chaos consumed the warehouse district. Bellini was trying to run, his remaining guards forming a protective shell around him as they fought toward one of the SUVs. "Don't let him reach that vehicle," came a new voice over the comms, federal, authoritative. "Romano, your people clear?" "Pulling back now," Matteo confirmed. "Bellini's all yours." But Bellini wasn't done yet. As his guards fell around him, he grabbed the decoy, pressing a gun to her head, using her as a human shield. "Back off," he screamed at the advancing agents. "Back off, or I kill her." Ava's blood ran cold. The decoy was trained, but she was also human, and the fear in her eyes was real. "Matteo," Ava whispered. "I see it." His voice was tight now, the calm cracking. "Bellini, let her go. This is over." "It's over when I say it's over." Bellini was backing toward the water's edge, dragging the decoy with him. "You think you've won? You think putting me in prison changes anything? I have people everywhere, in the courts, in the prisons, in every corner of the city. I'll be out in a year, and when I am, I'm coming for everyone you love, starting with that bitch Ava Collins." Something snapped inside Ava. All the fear, all the rage, all the helplessness of the past weeks crystallized into cold, hard clarity. "Vincent," she said, where exactly are we relative to the docks?" Vincent's eyes narrowed. "Ava, no." "Where?" 25 minutes southeast. But you're not going there. You said there are multiple exit routes from this apartment. To keep you safe, not so you can run toward danger." Vincent moved to block the door. "Matteo would kill me." "Matteo's going to lose the decoy if someone doesn't do something," Ava said, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her veins. "Bellini wants me? Fine. Let's give him what he wants." "Absolutely not," Mia said, grabbing Ava's arm. "Have you lost your mind?" "Maybe." Ava looked at her best friend, saw the fear there, but also something else, trust. "But I'm done hiding. I'm done letting other people fight my battles." "This is different from self-defense training," Vincent said. "This is a war zone." "Then teach me what I need to know. Fast." Ava's eyes were fierce, "Because I'm going with or without your help. But I'd rather go with it." Vincent and Mia exchanged a look, a whole conversation happening in silence. Then Vincent swore under his breath and grabbed his phone. "Matteo's going to kill me," he muttered, typing rapidly. "But you're right. Bellini wants you bad enough to give up his leverage if he thinks he can get the real thing." He looked up at Ava. "You wear a wire, you wear a vest, and you do exactly what I tell you. And the second things go sideways, you run. Deal? Deal. 10 minutes later, Ava was suited up in a bulletproof vest that felt too heavy and too thin all at once, a wire taped to her skin, an earpiece connecting her to Mateo's team. Mia had insisted on coming too, and Vincent had given up trying to argue with either of them. I've got a decoy of my own, Vincent said, still working his phone. Someone who can move the car close enough to make Bellini think you're approaching without exposing you too early. When he releases the cop to grab you instead, that's when we move. And if he doesn't release her? Then we improvise. Vincent met her eyes. Last chance to back out. Not a chance. The drive to the docks was the longest 20 minutes of Ava's life. She could hear Matteo over the comms, negotiating with Bellini, trying to talk him down. But Bellini wasn't listening. He was too far gone, too desperate, too convinced that violence was the only language that mattered. Federal agents are getting antsy, someone reported. They're talking about taking the shot. Negative, Matteo said sharply. Too risky with the hostage. Then what's the play? Before Matteo could answer, Vincent's voice cut in. The play is already in motion. Matteo, I'm sorry, but she insisted. A long, terrible pause. Then Matteo's voice, barely controlled. Vincent, tell me you didn't. She made a compelling argument. Where is she? 2 minutes out. Ava could hear Matteo breathing hard over the comms, could practically feel his rage and fear. Ava, if you can hear me, turn around, now. She pressed the button Vincent had shown her, opening her mic. I'm not turning around. God damn it. He wants me, Matteo, so let's end this, once and for all. Another long silence. Then quietly, if anything happens to you, it won't, because you're going to make sure it doesn't. She tried to sound more confident than she felt. I trust you. The car pulled up to a position Vincent had scouted earlier, close enough to be visible but far enough to give Ava a chance if things went wrong. She could see the warehouse now, the flashing lights of police vehicles, the dark water of the lake beyond, and in the center of it all, Rocco Bellini, still holding the decoy at gunpoint. Vincent, get ready to move her in, Matteo said, his voice all business now, emotion locked away. On my signal. Ava's door opened, and she stepped out into the cold night air. Spotlight swung toward her, and suddenly she was illuminated, exposed, every eye on her. Bellini's head snapped toward her, and even from this distance she saw the recognition, the triumph on his face. There she is, he crowed. The real Ava Collins. Come here, sweetheart. Let's talk. Let the woman go first, Ava called back, her voice stronger than she'd expected. You're not in a position to negotiate. Neither are you. You're surrounded, Bellini. It's over. But if you let her go, maybe I can convince the feds to go easy on you. Bellini laughed, a sound devoid of humor. You think I care about prison? I've been arrested before. I always get out. But you cost me money, reputation, respect. You turned Romano against me, gave him the ammunition he needed to destroy everything I built. So no, I'm not letting anyone go. You want to save her? Come here. Now. Ava looked at Vincent, who nodded grimly. This was it. She started walking. Every step felt like miles. She could hear Matteo over the comms, giving instructions to his team, positioning them for whatever play he had planned. Federal agents held their positions, fingers on triggers, waiting. That's far enough, Bellini said when she was 20 feet away. Take off the vest. Ava's hands went to the straps, but Matteo's voice stopped her. Don't. Ava, don't take off the vest. He'll shoot the decoy, Ava said quietly. He's going to shoot someone anyway. Don't make it easier for him. Bellini's grip on the decoy tightened. I said take it off. No. The word came out before Ava could second guess it. You want me? Fine. But I'm not making it easy. Shoot me if you want, but that vest stays on. Something flickered in Bellini's eyes. Surprise, maybe, or respect. You've got spine. I can see why Romano likes you. Let her go, Bellini. Matteo's voice came from somewhere in the darkness, amplified but directionless. This is between you and me. It always has been. Then show yourself, Romano. Stop hiding in the shadows like a coward. Not until you release the hostage. A standoff. Seconds ticked by, feeling like hours. Ava could see the calculations running behind Bellini's eyes, the desperation of a man who'd run out of options. Then everything happened at once. The decoy went limp suddenly, dead weight in Bellini's arms, using a technique Ava recognized from her training. Bellini's grip loosened for just a second, and the decoy twisted free, dropping and rolling away. Bellini's gun swung toward Ava. She dove sideways as the shot rang out, felt the impact against the vest like a sledgehammer to her chest. Pain exploded through her ribs, but the vest held. More shots from every direction. Federal agents moved in, Mateo's team converging. Ava hit the ground hard, the breath knocked from her lungs. Through the chaos, she saw Mateo emerge from behind a shipping container, moving with lethal purpose toward Bellini. Two of Bellini's remaining guards tried to intercept him, and Mateo put them down with brutal efficiency, each movement precise and controlled. Bellini was backing toward the water's edge, still firing wildly, hitting nothing. His face was twisted with rage and fear, the mask of control finally shattered. "This isn't over!" he screamed. "It's never over!" "Yes," Mateo said, closing the distance. "It is." He hit Bellini with a tackle that sent them both to the ground, the gun skittering away. They fought like animals, all pretense of civility gone, just two men trying to destroy each other. Ava pushed herself up, ignoring the screaming pain in her ribs, and saw Bellini get the upper hand, his hands closing around Mateo's throat. Without thinking, she grabbed the fallen gun, her hands shaking but steady enough. "Bellini!" He looked up, saw her pointing the gun at him, and actually smiled. "You don't have the guts. You tried to kill my best friend. You tried to kill me. You've destroyed countless lives and walked away clean every time." Ava's finger tightened on the trigger. "You're wrong. I absolutely have the guts." For a moment, she genuinely considered it. Considered ending him right there, making sure he could never hurt anyone again. The temptation was overwhelming, but then Mateo's voice cut through the haze. "Ava, don't. He's not worth it." She looked at Mateo, saw him still pinned beneath Bellini, but also saw the certainty in his eyes. He'd killed before, she knew that. But he was telling her she didn't have to. That she could choose differently. Federal agents swarmed in, pulling Bellini off Mateo, forcing him to the ground, reading him his rights. The gun felt heavy in Ava's hands, and she slowly lowered it, let it drop. Then Mateo was there, pulling her into his arms, his hands running over her to check for injuries. "Are you insane? You could have been killed." "But I wasn't." Ava's legs were shaking now, adrenaline crash hitting hard. "Is it over? Really over?" "Yeah." Mateo held her tighter. "It's over." Around them, police were securing the scene, paramedics rushing to check casualties. The decoy was already up and talking to federal agents, apparently unharmed. Vincent appeared with Mia, both of them looking shaken but whole. "You're completely crazy," Mia said, wrapping Ava in a careful hug that avoided her injured ribs. "But I've never been more proud of you." An FBI agent approached, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and an air of authority. "Ms. Collins? I'm Special Agent Rebecca Morrison. I need to get your statement." "Can it wait until morning?" Mateo asked, his arm still around Ava. "She's been through enough tonight." Agent Morrison studied them both, then nodded. "Tomorrow, 10 a.m. My office." She handed Mateo a card. "And Romano? We're going to need to have a long conversation about your methods." "Looking forward to it," Mateo said dryly. As the agents led Bellini away in handcuffs, he turned back one last time, his eyes finding Ava. "This isn't over," he called out. "I'll get out. I always get out." Agent Morrison smiled, cold and satisfied. "Not this time. We have 23 counts against you, including kidnapping a federal officer. You're looking at life without parole." She leaned closer to Bellini. "You should have stayed in your lane, Rocco. Coming after Romano's people was your biggest mistake." They dragged him away, still screaming threats, and Ava felt something inside her finally unclench. It was really over. Bellini was caught. Tyler was out of her life. The nightmare that had started with a desperate hand signal in a restaurant had finally reached its end. Mateo drove them back to the estate as dawn started breaking over the city, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Ava sat in the front seat, Mia and Vincent in the back, all of them quiet, processing. "What happens now?" Ava asked finally. Mateo glanced at her. "Now you get your life back, a real one. not the cage Tyler built or the hiding we've been doing. You get to decide what comes next. What if I don't know what that looks like yet? Then you figure it out. Take your time, but you don't have to figure it out alone. His hand found hers, fingers interlacing. If you want company. Ava looked at their joined hands, thought about everything they'd been through, everything they'd survived. A month ago, she'd been invisible, trapped, drowning. Now she was something else entirely, stronger, sharper, changed in ways both terrible and necessary. I'd like that, she said quietly. Company. The next few weeks passed in a blur of statements and depositions, legal proceedings and media coverage. Bellini's arrest made national news, his empire crumbling as associates turned on each other, trying to save themselves. Tyler disappeared from Chicago entirely, his father cutting him off after the full extent of his involvement came to light. Ava found a new apartment, her own place, chosen by her, paid for with money from a job she'd landed at a nonprofit that helped domestic violence survivors. It felt right, using her experience to help others who were where she'd been. Mia moved into a place 2 floors down, close enough to be there when needed, but far enough to give Ava space to rebuild herself. They had dinner together most nights, processing everything that had happened, planning futures that finally felt possible. And Matteo was a constant presence, but never an overwhelming one. He gave Ava space to breathe, to figure out who she was without fear dictating her choices. But he was always there when she reached for him, solid and certain and real. 3 months after Bellini's arrest, Ava woke in Matteo's bed, a rare morning when she'd stayed over, slowly learning to share space with someone without panic. She found him already awake, propped on one elbow, watching her with an expression she was learning to recognize. "What?" she asked, self-conscious. "Just thinking about how different you look when you sleep now. No nightmares." "I still have them sometimes. But not every night." His hand traced her jawline gently. "You're healing. So are you." It was true. She'd seen the change in him too, the way he'd started to let his guard down, to trust that the people he cared about wouldn't be ripped away. Matteo's phone buzzed, and he reached for it, his expression shifting as he read. "Bellini's sentencing is today, 3 p.m. Are you going?" "I was planning to. Do you want to come?" Ava thought about it. Thought about facing the man who tried to destroy everything, seeing him reduced and powerless. Part of her wanted that closure. But another part, the part that was learning to let go, didn't need it. "No," she said finally. "I don't need to see him anymore. He doesn't get any more of my time." Matteo smiled, something warm and proud in his expression. "Good answer." They spent the morning together, lazy and unhurried, talking about plans for a foundation Matteo was starting in Sophia's name. One that would help women escape dangerous relationships, provide resources and protection and second chances. Ava had agreed to help run it, using everything she'd learned to make sure others didn't have to suffer the way she had. That afternoon, while Matteo attended the sentencing, Ava met Mia at a coffee shop. Their Thursday tradition resumed, but different now. Better. "So," Mia said, stirring sugar into her latte, "how are things with Matteo?" "Good. Really good." Ava couldn't stop the smile. "Sometimes I still can't believe this is real, that he's real. He's real, and he's completely gone for you. Everyone can see it. I'm gone for him too." It felt good to say out loud. "Is that crazy? After everything?" "No, it's human." Mia reached across the table, squeezed her hand. "You both went through hell and found each other on the other side. That's not crazy. That's beautiful." Ava's phone buzzed with a text from Matteo. "Life without parole. Bellini's done. Coming home to you." Home. Such a simple word, but it carried weight now. Not a place she was trapped, but a place she chose to be. She showed Mia the message, and her friend grinned. "Home, huh? That's big." "Yeah." Ava felt tears prick her eyes, but they were good tears this time. "It really is." 6 months later, Ava stood in front of a room full of women at the Foundation's first official meeting, her hands only slightly shaking as she prepared to speak. Matteo sat in the back row, there for support, but letting her have the spotlight. "My name is Ava Collins," she began, her voice steady and clear. "And a year ago, I was trapped in a relationship that was slowly destroying me. I felt invisible, powerless, like I'd lost myself completely. But one night, I did something that changed everything. I asked for help. She told her story. Not all of it, not the violence and the danger, but the parts that mattered. The fear, the shame, the slow realization that she deserved better, the courage it took to reach out, even when she wasn't sure anyone would reach back. You all know how that feels, she said, looking around the room at faces that reflected her own journey. The fear, the doubt, the voice that says you can't do it, that it's easier to stay, that you're not strong enough to leave. But you are. Every single one of you is stronger than you know. And you're not alone. Not anymore. The women applauded, and Ava felt something shift inside her chest, the final piece of healing clicking into place. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was thriving. She was helping others thrive. After the meeting, Matteo found her outside, looking out over the city lights. "You were amazing in there," he said, slipping his arms around her waist from behind. I was terrified. Couldn't tell. You looked like you were born for this. He pressed a kiss to her temple. Sophia would have loved you, would have loved what you're doing. I wish I could have known her. She's part of why you're here, part of why I saw you that night and couldn't look away. Matteo turned her to face him. Everything that happened, all the pain, all the fear, it led us here, to this, and I wouldn't change a second of it if it meant not having you. Ava reached up, cupping his face. I love you. I should have said it before, but I was scared. I know, I love you too. Have since you walked out of that restaurant and trusted a stranger to keep you safe. His smile was soft, genuine, nothing held back. You changed my life, Ava Collins. You saved mine. We saved each other. He kissed her then, deep and sure and full of promise. Around them, the city hummed with life and possibility. Somewhere in that sprawl, Tyler was rebuilding whatever life he could, far from Chicago and everyone he'd hurt. Bellini was in a cell, his empire nothing but memory and ash. And Ava was free. Not the fragile, tentative freedom of those first days, always looking over her shoulder, waiting for the other shoe to drop. But real freedom, the kind that came from knowing she was strong enough to fight for herself, smart enough to ask for help when she needed it, brave enough to choose love even after everything she'd survived. She pulled back from the kiss, looked into Matteo's dark eyes, and saw her future reflected there. Not perfect, not without challenges, but real and hers and chosen freely. Take me home, she said. Always. They walked together through the Chicago night, two people who'd met in darkness and found light in each other, proof that sometimes the worst moments of our lives are just the beginning of something better. That asking for help isn't weakness, but the bravest thing you can do. That the right person won't try to make you smaller. They'll stand beside you while you remember how to be strong. Ava Collins had started as a woman hiding fear behind a calm face, invisible and slowly suffocating. She'd become someone who stood up in front of rooms full of strangers and told them they deserved better, who ran a foundation dedicated to making sure no one else had to suffer alone. And Matteo Romano had started as a man defined by control and distance, armored against loss. He'd become someone who chose to stay, to trust, to let himself feel again. Together, they'd built something neither could have imagined that first night in the restaurant. Not just survival, but a life worth living. Not just protection, but partnership. Not just escape from darkness, but a choice to walk into the light, hand in hand, ready for whatever came next. The hand signal that had started it all, that desperate plea for help, had been answered by someone who understood what it meant to need saving. And in saving her, Matteo had saved himself too. That's how these stories go sometimes. Not with grand gestures or perfect endings, but with small acts of courage that ripple outward, changing everything. With strangers who choose not to look away. With broken people who find each other and decide that together they can be whole. Ava and Matteo walked into their future knowing the past had shaped them, but didn't define them. They'd both been scarred by loss and violence, both knew what it meant to fight for survival, but they also knew something more important, that love wasn't about being saved or saving someone else. It was about standing together, equals and partners, choosing each other every day. As they reached Matteo's car, Ava paused and looked back at the foundation building, its windows glowing warm against the night. Inside, women were finding hope, finding strength, finding the courage to ask for help and accept it when it came. She'd been one of them once. Now she was the one offering the hand. And that, more than anything, proved she'd truly survived. She'd done more than escape. She'd transformed. And in doing so, she'd helped transform the man who'd first answered her call. Together, they drove home through the city they'd both bled for and in, ready to face whatever tomorrow brought, knowing that as long as they had each other, they could handle anything. Because neither of them needed saving anymore. But they'd chosen each other anyway, and that made all the difference.